This video is on the isosceles triangle. An isosceles triangle is a triangle with at least two congruent sides. I'm going to start with drawing an isosceles triangle and identifying the different parts. In an isosceles triangle, there are two congruent sides, and those sides are referred to as the legs of the isosceles triangle. The third side would be the base. Where the legs meet, we call the vertex angle. And the other two are called the base angles. There are two things that we know in an isosceles triangle. In an isosceles triangle, the legs are congruent, as I've already marked with the given tick marks. We also know in an isosceles triangle, the base angles are congruent. So in my picture, remember where the legs come together, where they meet, that's the vertex angle. That makes these bottom two angles right here the base angles, and I know that they are congruent. We have a theorem that also states if I have a triangle whose legs are congruent, then the angle opposite those sides are also congruent. And if I have a triangle and I'm given that these two angles are congruent, then I know that the legs opposite them are congruent. Let's look at a few examples. First example. This is an isosceles triangle because I can see that two of the sides are marked congruent. If this angle right here is 40 degrees, then I know that x also has to be 40 degrees. Because if the sides are congruent, then the base angles are congruent. Here's another example. In this example, you can see that in my triangle, these two base angles are congruent. And if the base angles are congruent, then the sides opposite them are also congruent. So x plus 2 has to equal 12. And x would equal 10. Let's look at another example. This is another example of an isosceles triangle. Now, when you look at this triangle, first you want to locate the congruent sides and then locate that vertex angle. So here are my congruent sides. Together, this is the vertex angle, which is 65 degrees. If this is the vertex angle, that means these two angles right here are the base angles. And I know that the base angles are congruent. So if this angle is x, this angle is also x. And together, 2x plus 65 has to add up to 180 degrees using triangle sum theorem. Therefore, 2x is going to equal 115. Divide by 2, and x will equal 67.5. We're going to look at one more example. Feel free to pause and take the time to write the example down. In this example, again, it's an isosceles triangle because I have two legs marked congruent. Again, if you look at these two congruent legs and you look where they come together, this is my vertex angle, which means that these two are my base angles. So even though the triangle's not sitting on this side, these are the base angles, and the base angles are congruent. So if this angle is 2x plus 7, this angle is also 2x plus 7. And using triangle sum, I know that all three of these angles have to add up to 180 degrees. So 2x plus 7 plus 2x plus 7 plus 35 has to add up to 180 degrees. Do a little simplifying here, and I get 4x plus 49. Actually, I don't think it's 49. 35 and 14. Oh yeah, 49. 49 equals 180. Subtract the 49 from both sides. Divide by 4. And x is 131 fourths. And that is our video on isosceles triangles.